Hello and welcome to Girl Ascending. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be looking at the Minor Arcana and specifically the Suit of Swords.
Okay, so we are going to be starting off looking at the Minor Arcana Suit of Swords, of course, with the King of Swords. And when we're looking at this card, what we really want to be thinking about is intellectual maturity. So this is a card about a leadership, about having that knowledge, but also using it in a practical capacity and really being aware of the bigger picture of social justice. So obviously swords are aligned with air, aligned with thought, mental, the collective, and the signs of Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra. So we really want to be thinking about the bigger picture when this card comes up. So it could be that we are being asked to play a role in some kind of bigger sense with either leadership or perhaps being fair in a situation where perhaps we've tried not to take a side. But it's also encouraging us to always act with integrity and to be aware of that bigger mindset, that bigger picture. So this is a very practical, active card from a mental point of view. And then when the King of Swords appears in the reverse, it's that idea of being authoritarian. So we're kind of still trying to look at the bigger picture, seeing those bigger ideas, but we may be perverting them to make them fit more our own narrative. So we might be micromanaging, we might be, hungry for the power in a situation, and we really want to try and step away from that and sort of tap into our emotions instead of avoiding them and not give in to this sense of arrogance that the King of Swords energy, when blocked, can come through with. And moving on now, we come to the Queen of Swords, and she really carries through that same sense of energy that we were feeling with the King of Swords, that idea of thought, of airiness, of fairness. Although we're only seeing her from the side, we can kind of get that same image of justice on the Justice card in the Major Arcana with one hand open, and then although she doesn't have the scales, we see a little tassely bracelet that gives the image perhaps of a scale, and also holding the sword. And on her throne we can see cherubs and butterflies and all those ideas of airy things to do with the mind. So this card in the upright position is really about wisdom and about being a positive advisor. So if someone is coming to you for advice, it's asking you to really think about what role you're playing in their life and how you can help them move forward. But it's also about being an advisor to yourself. Are you being perceptive in a situation, or are you allowing yourself to be led astray? But this card suggests that you have experience in whatever area of life it is that you're questioning the cards about, and that you really just need to dig into your own personal wisdom in order to figure out the best solution. And when we see the Queen of Swords in the reverse, it's that idea of hardening our heart and of becoming a bit cold, a bit withdrawn, perhaps even a bit narrow-minded. Perhaps a situation is coming up, but we're not being very sympathetic to it, either to the person involved or even again to ourselves. And it's that idea that we may have gone through a painful situation and we're internalizing that pain rather than talking about it and releasing it in a positive way. But overall, the Queen of Swords is really about that mental strength, that wisdom, and being discerning in our life experiences as we are moving forward, depending on what question the querent is asking. And now moving forward to the Knight of Swords, and hopefully we should have remembered by now that the Knight cards in the Minor Arcana are all about movement, about forward action. And we can see from this card that there is no doubt that this is a card of movement and moving swiftly. We can see the horse, there's almost a little bit of fear on his face. The trees are moving, the clouds are moving swiftly, and everything is primed and ready to go. And in the upright position, this is really a card of decisive action. It's that idea of you've got an idea and you've got to run with it. So whatever question this card comes up for, whether for yourself or for a specific querent, it's really that idea of a yes, a positive yes. Take that leap, take that chance, move forward, do so quickly, don't delay, don't allow your self-saboteur to step in and talk you out of it. Go forward and really feel that momentum. And then when this card comes up in the reverse, it's actually about maybe being a bit hasty, that perhaps we are taking action without really the proper forethought. It could even be that feeling of indecision where we're not really sure which way to go and we're needing to take a bit more time to decide. But it could also be about maybe a feeling of hostility towards a decision. So maybe you want to change jobs, but there's pressure for you to stay. Maybe you want to leave a relationship or start a new one, but there's pressure on either side that it may not be a very good idea. So it's about taking that time to decide what to do. So in the upright position, the Knight of Swords is all about taking that big leap, moving forward, really taking that chance and doing so with speed and confidence. And then in the reverse, the Knight of Swords is about channeling that energy in a different way, maybe taking a little step back, having a bit more thought and not being so hasty with the action that you are looking to take. And the next card that we're going to be meeting in this suit is, of course, the Page. So we're coming now to the Page of Swords. And as we can see from the card, again, we've got this really strong airy energy coming in, and we can almost see the little birds sort of tweeting above the figure's head. That idea, that sort of Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella motif of being a bit young, a bit naive and idealistic, which is something that, of course, we associate strongly with all of the pages in the Minor Arcana. But when it comes to the Page of Swords specifically, it's really that idea of fresh ideas. So it's all about what's going on in your mind. So it could be fresh ideas for a business, a fresh idea to spice up a relationship, or it could be that you're needing to communicate with someone. So that could either be you taking that action to communicate better in order to improve a situation, or it could mean that some news is coming your way that you're going to need to be open to and have a fresh mindset when it comes to hearing. And there is, of course, an element of idealism as with all the pages, and this applies to the Page of Swords as well. So be careful what you hear, not to be naive about it. And then when the Page of Swords is coming up in the reverse, it's that idea of blocking. So if there is something coming through, some piece of news, we may not want to hear it. We may be feeling self-conscious that we're not sure how to move forward. We're kind of stuck in a rut, having those stale thoughts. But it can also be a card of renewal, so that finally we are speaking out, we are speaking the truth of a situation that maybe we have been holding back on. And also it could be that idea of having the right to speak, that perhaps someone has tried to stop you from having your say in a particular situation, but now you are in a strong position where you are ready to speak your part and speak your truth. So the Page of Swords is all about that fresh start, that fresh beginning, but it really is when it comes to the elements of mental things, thoughts and communication. Okay, so moving on now to the Pip cards of the Suit of Swords. So we are starting off with the 10 of Swords. And this, for me, is always a card of maybe being a little bit over dramatic. We can definitely see the picturization, the symbolism of overkill. But it's that idea of being a bit of a drama queen, that there is some kind of crisis going on, and we've really given into that idea of getting to that mental breaking point, and that perhaps we are indulging in it a bit too much, that we are allowing ourselves to really give into that sense of feeling, mentally destroyed by something, but we're doing it in a negative way. So actually, rather than it being necessarily the release that it should be, it's that idea that we're almost enjoying that pain and that crisis for an attention-seeking way. So we want to be wary of that when the 10 of Swords comes up in the upright position. And then in the reverse, it's actually kind of getting that idea of, although we may be resisting an ending, actually we're going to be making a positive comeback, that there is going to be some degree of success, and this success, this change is actually really going to endure and it's going to last. So this is one of those cards where in the reverse, the meaning is slightly more positive than in the upright position. But either way, this card does symbolise rest in one way or another. So whether it comes up upright or in the reverse position, this card is really encouraging you to have a period of rest, to acknowledge the end of a cycle, and in the upright position to make sure you're not giving in to that breaking point, you're not giving in to that negative side of it. Instead, you're honouring this period of rest that needs to happen in order to gather strength again. And then in the blocked position, it's all about acknowledging that you're needing to have a break and a rest as well, but it's then going to move on to something much more positive. You're going to turn that pain, that trauma, that difficult time into something really positive and successful. And moving forward now to the Nine of Swords. So as we can see visually from this card, this is really a card about nightmares. It's about that idea of a thought that just will not leave you alone, that is tormenting you. It looks almost as if the swords are going through the figure that's sitting up in bed, and it's that real palpable feeling of worry where negative thoughts just will not leave you alone. And if we actually look at the card visually, on the bottom left-hand corner, we can see figures that are fighting. We've got that idea of tensions, and also on the bedspread, we can see that all 12 signs of the zodiac are represented. So we've also got this idea that although it may feel like we're alone and we're the only person going through something, actually having worry and anxiety is a universal experience, and that we are perhaps concerned for others when this card comes up, as well as for ourselves. And then the Nine of Swords in the reverse is all about overcoming that fear that we have maybe gone through a difficult time, but that we are able now to restore a feeling of peace and let go of that anxiety. It could also be that we are maybe feeling a bit pessimistic still, or that we are dealing with someone who is actively trying to push us down or make us feel negative, and we are really trying to push back against that sensation. So in the upright position, the card may be acknowledging that you are going through a difficult time, perhaps restlessness, sleeplessness, that you're having anxiety either about yourself or about someone else, and that you're really struggling with these negative thoughts. And then in the blocked position, it's the idea of releasing these, of letting these thoughts go, releasing this anxiety, and also acknowledging that you may still be feeling a bit down about a certain situation, or that there may be something actively negative happening to you that you are trying to currently push back against. Moving on now, we are coming to the Eight of Swords, and at this point you may be thinking, okay, well, this definitely looks like quite a negative suit. I don't really want these cards coming up in a reading. However, it's important to remember that the tarot is there to represent all the different archetypes that we may encounter and may experience within ourselves, and all the different emotions. So you have to have a certain sense of some of these more negative emotions coming up in order to balance out readings, and to really see the true intuition connection. So moving on, Eight of Swords. So this is really in the upright position a card of restriction. So it could be the restriction of thought, so that idea that we are maybe being our own worst enemy, that we're listening to our inner self-saboteur, and that we're limiting ourselves because we are afraid to do something. We're not sure if we've got all the tools to overcome a certain situation. Maybe we're just out of a relationship and we're afraid to get out dating again, or perhaps we want to go for a promotion at work or start our own business, but we just feel that sensation of not being sure if we've really got the skills to do it. So it's all about seeing through those barriers that aren't really there, that are self-imposed. And then in the blocked position, it's that sensation of release. Actually, we can see clearly again, and that we've really got that sensation of trusting within ourselves. You know, if we actually look at the card visually, there's swords all around, and the bonds that that this woman is wearing are very loose, so at any point she could choose to cut herself free, and that is really what the sharp points of the swords in reverse are encouraging us to do. When this comes up in the blocked position, they're encouraging us to release ourselves. But overall, the idea of the Eight of Swords is that we're having a sense of mental restriction in particular. It can be physical, but most likely is to do with a mental barrier that we have put up for ourselves. Next up, we have the Seven of Swords, and this card is really all about being dishonest in one way or another. So it could be that perhaps we are being a bit strategic in how we are approaching a situation, that perhaps we're not being necessarily honest with ourselves in the way that we are trying to go about something. Perhaps we are being a bit secretive, we're holding something back either from our partner or from our colleagues or from ourselves. So it's that idea that there is maybe something a little bit underhand going on. It could also be that perhaps there is someone that we are close to where there is a little bit of underhand behaviour going on as well, so that we need to be on the lookout for that. But of course, the swords are all about what is going on mentally, and this card can also indicate that there are some mental struggles going on, that we are determined and that we are pushing through, but that maybe we are not using our motivation in the right way to get the end result that we really want. And then when the Seven of Swords comes up in the blocked position, it's that idea of realigning with our own truth again. You know, we are taking on that idea of being transparent in a situation, being honest, but it can also have the negative implication that we are giving up our power. So perhaps we've been trying so hard in a situation that now we've got to that point where we don't know what to do anymore. So we're just letting it go completely and just saying, I give up for a period of time. And when this card is in the block position, it can also indicate that you're not taking responsibility in a situation, that perhaps you were the toxic person towards someone else, and you need to acknowledge that in order to heal and move on with your life in the more positive way. But overall, this card is really got that sort of dishonest, sneaky, secretive energy. And if it comes up for you or someone else in a reading, you want to be on your guard. And now we move on to the Six of Swords. Now this card is all about the idea of movement and travel, but it may not be in the way that we might traditionally think of a card coming up for travel. It's actually a card indicating that we are moving away from a bad situation or a negative time in our lives, and it's that idea of a transition and of movement, but it doesn't necessarily indicate that we are physically moving. It could be that we have just decided to separate ourselves from negativity. But as we can see in the way that the card is represented, it's almost like a gondola. The waters are very calm. So it's that idea of overcoming something, moving away in the most positive way possible, and we're really leaving behind any negativity, any bad thoughts. It can even be about reconnecting very positively to ourselves, that we've overcome a period of mental challenges and we are now allowing the calmer waters to embrace us as we move away and move on from that time. And in the reverse, the Six of Swords is all about trying to take refuge, but perhaps we are resisting it. So we know that we need to leave a situation or that we need to move on, but we're kind of putting it off. You know, we don't really want to go. Sometimes when we physically travel, the actual process of organising the travel can be quite challenging, can be quite difficult. So it's that idea of maybe being stuck in a job, but you just can't quite muster up the effort to go for other interviews or to leave. And the same with a relationship, that perhaps you think, well, if I leave this relationship, will I ever meet someone else? And so we're kind of putting off that necessary transition. But when this card comes up in the blocked position, it's definitely letting us know that it is time to heal through moving away or through letting go of a situation. So when we look at the Six of Swords, it's all about that energy of making a transition from something negative into something more positive. And the next card that we're going to be meeting is the Five of Swords, and the number 5. We have that idea of being in a transitional period. We're halfway through the Pip Cards now, and when this card comes up, it's really giving that energy of a defeat or of some sort of conflict. And if we look at the sky looks quite stormy, and we can see that the figure in the foreground is looking backwards. There are swords in his hand, also swords on the floor. There are 2 figures in the background to match the 2 swords on the ground. So it's that idea that maybe there's been a conflict and there has been some degree of defeat. So it could be that we are feeling defeated, perhaps we are experiencing a setback, or it could even be that we were the victor in a situation, but that actually we regret it. So maybe we did something nasty to someone else that felt good in the moment, but now actually we're starting to realise that that wasn't a great way to behave, and that we've got a sort of a conflict of thought and of behaviour at the current time. And then when we meet this card in the blocked position, it's about overcoming that idea of conflict. Maybe we're going to need to apologise or try to reconcile in some way. And it's that idea of perhaps we need to step away from a situation in order to see it a little bit more clearly, and to think about how actually we want to show up in that situation. So if this card comes up, it's really that idea of perhaps there has been some kind of setback, or perhaps we are the one that has created a situation of defeat for ourselves. And it's also important to remember that thought and mentality are so key when the swords come up. So it could be ways that we have been self-defeating mentally, or it could have been ways where we have actively used words to defeat ourselves or to lash out at someone else, and that is now coming back to us, and we are really feeling that sensation of regret over a situation. Now we are meeting the Four of Swords, and as we can see visually, this card really calls back to the earlier card of the Nine of Swords, and it's that idea of coming through those nightmares, those anxious times, and now we are in a period of recovery. And instead of seeing conflict on the bed frame, instead on the stained glass window, we can see that there is a sort of a religious scene, perhaps calling back to the Five of Pentacles. We've got that idea of a charity. Obviously, we'll be moving on to Pentacles next. But with this card in the upright position, it's all about relief, having rest, a healing, pause, and taking a break to really kind of decide what you want to do next. And the number 4 in tarot is obviously about stability, about a stable foundation. So we're really, in a positive period of our lives. Sometimes it can be hard to take a break. It feels that if we are resting, that we're not working. But this card is reminding us that it's really important to heal, to have those moments of rest in order to progress. You don't need to earn rest. Rest is part and parcel of life and of progress and of success. And then when this card comes up in the blocked position, it's about letting go of that period of rest, really being active again, getting back out there and deciding what it is you want to do next. But this can also be a sign that perhaps you have put off healing and that your body is really calling for you now to take that time of rest, that you've been pushing yourself, that you've been in difficult situations, and now your body is really reminding you that you need to take a rest. And also we have to remember that the sword is all about what's going on mentally. So when this card comes up in the blocked position, it's the idea that body and mind have been separated, and your body is reminding your mind that it does need to take a break. But overall, the Four of Swords is really a card about rest and recovery, very much from a mental health sense. Okay, so this is probably one of the most visually recognizable cards of the Minor Arcana of the Tarot. You often see it in tattoo designs or on t-shirts, that sort of thing, because it's obviously very easily identifiable as to the meaning behind it. So the Three of Swords is all about that sensation of heartbreak, but it's not just about heartbreak as something negative. It's that idea that the suffering wakes us up, it pushes us forward. We can see that the heart is being, physically pierced, but then we've also got these clouds behind with rain coming down like tears, washing us clean, cleansing us, and that idea that we are really growing through whatever period of suffering we've been enduring, that we have gone through heartbreak, but that we are stronger for it. And then when this card comes up in the reverse, it's that idea that perhaps we've been avoiding pain, that maybe we have gone through a painful situation, but we've internalized it. And so that trauma is stopping us from moving forward and from growing. But it can also be a sign that you are releasing that pain as well, or that you are still holding on to it and that you need to let go in order to experience that full release in order to move forward. But this is really a card all about tending to matters of the heart as well. So although the swords is very much about what's going on mentally and communications, when this card comes up, it's about verbalizing how we're feeling in matters of the heart and of heartbreak. If you're going through a breakup, it's still so important to talk to someone. You don't always need to take yourself away, or if you are feeling pain through some other kind of loss that has gone on, it's important to access those thoughts, to not cut them off, to journal, to meditate, to really think and process the situation in order to make sure that you are releasing it fully and not keeping it as trauma in your body, in your physical sense. And moving forward, we come to the Two of Swords, and Two in tarot, of course, is all about making a choice. And in this card, we can very much see that sensation of balance, but that there is some kind of a struggle going on. We can visually see the obstacles in the background. We can see the moon right at the top of the card on the right hand side as well, and it's that idea that maybe there are secrets needing to be revealed, that maybe we are being blind to, that we're not fully letting ourselves see the true reality of a situation. So it may be an indication that we need to make a choice, but that it is a difficult one, that we are trying to find clarity about the situation, and that the only way that we can find that real balance is through understanding. So perhaps it's not necessarily even a choice that we're having to make, but it's about someone that we love, our child, a partner, a sibling, a colleague, even someone that we're close to is going through a difficult situation, and we're needing to try and help them find that true vision. We need to have that sensation of being an ally to them in their time of need. And then when the Two of Swords comes up in the reverse position, it's that idea of being thoughtless, that we're acting without thinking, that we don't have that clarity. And it's that idea of being ambiguous in a situation. So we kind of know how we want something to turn out, but we're not quite sure how to take the action in order to get there. Or it could be that we're sort of acting thoughtlessly, so that we've made a choice, but we've not really thought about it properly, and now actually we're realizing that perhaps it isn't the way that we wanted to move forward. But when we're thinking about the Two of Swords, we really want to be aware of that power struggle and of that need to find clarity and to see things as they are, not as how we would perhaps want them to be, in order to make the right decision for the particular situation in question, either for yourself or for the querent. And we come now to our Ace card in this particular suit, the Ace of Swords. And this is really a card that has a lot of force behind it. We can see that grey cloud coming in, the idea of the Hermit, that really strong mental energy that taking time away can manifest in. We can see the sword thrusting its way through the crown, and we can see leaves from the tree of life tumbling down, and we can see that there is now a calm grey background with all the obstacles at the bottom, again sort of flat and quite barren, no longer posing an issue. And this card in the upright position is really about gaining fresh understanding of a situation and real mental clarity. It's that sensation you get where you've got a new idea or new understanding of a situation and you feel absolutely unstoppable. And it's that idea of coming through into a new mental cycle, that you've really overcome something, you've got a fresh understanding of a person, a place, a situation, and you know how you are going to move forward. It can also be a really positive sign that perhaps there's been some degree of agreement in a situation where perhaps there was a misunderstanding before. And then in the blocked position, the Ace of Swords represents that idea of confusion, of disagreement, and the idea that we're still struggling with some kind of mental obstacle. It sort of gives the sensation of a headache, that we're really suppressing something mentally, and that is stopping us from being able to move forward and to grow. But the Ace of Swords is always really about leaning into that idea of new ideas, of something, that kind of spark that's coming through. We've really got that new, fresh idea. We're in alignment. We've got that true mental clarity, and we know exactly how we want to move forward from an ideas and a mental communicative perspective.
Okay, so we've almost finished looking through the Minor Arcana now. I hope you found that useful, and then join me next time for our final suit, which is the Suit of Pentacles.